Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an episode of the Saturday morning D&D show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming, who doesn't have video camera problems this early in the morning. At all.
All technical problems. We were 5 minutes away. Everything was working. Screen flashed, mass hysteria, cats living with dogs. I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, it was just like, what? So
we're on a phone camera.
So Lucian, he jumped on his phone camera, and that's what he's using right now, which is why we're on the guest overlay. So specifically, he could have a face and things like that. So, but hopefully we can hear everybody. I think we can. I got some audio.
No echoes.
No echoes that I can hear. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi everybody. So, we got 10 minutes late. I apologize for that, but we'll jump in and do the best to our abilities. We're a Dungeons & Dragons talk show. Thank you for joining us. We're live Saturday mornings on YouTube and Twitch. You can search Saturday Morning D&D Show and find us there. The rumors. This is like the big thing I guess I wanted to talk about, but we have a lot of little cool things to talk about as well. And it comes as completely no surprise to me, but some of the Discord circles that I'm in, they're like, hey, I got secret information, and people were talking back and forth, and I was like, oh, like what secret information do you have? And they were saying that they had an inside source that was saying that Wizards is not going to have an open game license for D&D 5.5 or 6th edition or OneD&D, whatever we're calling it. I guess I should use OneD&D because that's the terminology they're using. But they're not going to have a open game license, which means that third-party publishers will not be able to publish anything for it, and it'll be a lot like 4th edition. 4th edition didn't have an OGL. Everything was done in-house, and coincidentally, that is one of the driving factors that created Pathfinder, because all of a sudden, people couldn't make money off of this game. And so they were like, well, I'm going to go where I can make money. And you have very talented designers who are making very awesome stuff. And they're not all working for Wizards of the Coast. So because of that, they, turn around and they start making Pathfinder stuff. And then all of a sudden, Pathfinder shoots up. And there's a lot of reasons why 4th edition wasn't as successful as Wizards wanted it to. So Zris in chat here, I'm already thinking the same thing. Like, we would have, it would make 5th edition stronger. It would not make 6th edition better, I think, or it might make it more lucrative for Wizards of the Coast. But a lot of people were saying, well, this is just going to push people into making better 5e content because we have an open game license for 5e. Or even revisiting 3E or 3.5 with the open game license and evolving it from there. What do you think about all this? And is it a surprise to you that Wizards would be doing this? Or Hasbro, I should say.
Not a surprise, because they never really wanted... They're a money-making company from the moment they were created. The moment Gary Gygax was a money-making person... TSR was a money-making person. He didn't like it either, right?
He didn't want
Wizards
people
of the
making...
Coast. Yeah.
Gary Gygax.
But I think it also, during the OpenGL portion, came out right about when I think open license stuff in other areas of our culture, and I'm going to say mostly probably American, because I think what we started seeing back then during that time too, and I don't know what the year was, but all of a sudden, we're using OBS, open license, programming, open license. There's this push for people to have open free software, open free license, open free internet kind of stuff. And so I think at that point, maybe it did make sense to have a gaming system that was OpenGL, open source in a way that people could then use. And they do make, I'm sure, plenty of money off of some licensing still with 5e. It's not like everything that's 5e that's made they don't get a cut of. I think there are some things that they don't, but I also think they have plenty of licensing agreements that they're probably making a lot of money off of for 5e stuff. So, but yeah, I think if I'm a creator and all the Kickstarters are offering 5e variants of campaign worlds, rules, new stuff, then they come out with a 6th edition. I could just keep doing 5e stuff because it has a track record of just selling really well, because in reality the system is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it wouldn't sell that well if it wasn't good. I can't imagine anything else that makes it.
You know,
if it was a bad system, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, and we've talked about, Wizards said that OneD&D will be backwards compatible with 5th edition. And how accurate that is, we have no idea yet. I'm leaning more towards you'll be able to use new OneD&D characters with older adventures, but I don't think you'll be able to use older characters with new adventures, maybe, with a few tweaking and stuff. But if you're... There's two things from this. If you're Hasbro and you own D&D and you're seeing $1 million Kickstarter after $1 million Kickstarter and you're not getting a cent of that, you're probably like, well, wait a minute. We made that company. We should be getting something for that. And Hasbro is notorious about protecting their intellectual property. That really is the Hasbro business. They don't make new things. And I know Wizards of the Coast is like a part of Hasbro, and Wizards does make new things, but like Hasbro itself has been like, let's take Transformers, let's take G.I. Joe, let's take this.
Company.
And then they just hold on to it. And they're like, oh, do you want to experience this again? Well, okay, but you got to pay us a bunch of money, and then it's done. You know, you make your Transformers movie, we're done. We're not doing this. So they're very, that is their business. Whether you agree with that or not, it is their business.
Everybody's business, right? Though, because I couldn't just go out and make a Pathfinder 2nd edition book using all the Pathfinder 2nd edition rules and then just call it mine.
No. But what I'm saying is like
Invisible Sun or
no, you are correct. Yeah, because I'm not making Invisible Sun content. But my point is Hasbro isn't either. They don't make anything inherently G.I. Joe. They just have that intellectual property, and then they allow other people to make it for money. So it makes sense to them that they're like, well, if we have D&D, why isn't Matt Colville paying us money to make 5th edition content? And I think that's the idea, because they were doing it with OneD&D, you know, like, hey, OneD&D, do this. And that was the Hasbro model, where we're like, we'll license you all of the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons stuff. But then, you know, it comes back and it's just like, well, we'll license you all the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons stuff. And literally, Fandom and OneD&D, they didn't have to do anything. They just had to they didn't have to create a brand and an image. That's kind of the idea that Hasbro thinks they're bringing to the table. But I think nowadays it's like, really, those third-party people are doing 90% of the legwork of making this a good product, and you're just reaping the benefits at the top. So now you have, going back to, I'm sure Hasbro is looking at these $1 million Kickstarters, and they're like, why aren't we getting a cut of this? But what does this do for third-party publishers? And we were just saying, I think that's going to really make it, make 5th edition even stronger. And I think a lot less people OSR, might play. Too? Yeah. What about OSR?
So it's basic D&D rules, yet they don't have to pay. Like Goodman Games and them don't have to pay Wizards of the Coast for the basic set rules, right? So
that's because of the OGL.
Based on, but that's on the 3.5, right? That you're not
still
using
available.
3.5 rules in OSR, are you?
You don't necessarily have to, but like
if you're using like Redbox rules,
if you're using any of the rules that were in the 3rd edition OGL or the 5th edition OGL, you kind of there's
two OGLs. I gotcha.
There is.
I thought only the 5th edition one existed. I didn't realize there was a 3rd edition OGL also. Okay, that makes more sense. So we already see what happens.
OGL version 1 was for 3rd edition, and then OGL version 1.0A is the 5th edition like sub variant of it.
Got it.
And
Okay,
in
that
4th
makes more
edition,
sense.
I'm just reading this now. I didn't know this, but 4th edition had a royalty-free license called the Game System License, but that was apparently that was not nearly as popular because
They tried to take it back.
the Game System License is incompatible with the OGL, and so 5th edition was kind of a big thing where it's like we're actually going to use that same OGL for 3rd edition, which was you can just make stuff as long as you're not using copyrighted materials. So I can't copy and paste the 5th edition player's handbook or adventures or anything like that into my game, but I can use those same concepts of advantage, disadvantage, roll to hit, things like that. And so that terminology is really what it came down to. And with 5th edition, it allowed you to make, because of the system reference document, I could make subclasses, and that was huge. So
I wonder if there's a video out there that says things you're not allowed to use because this document says, like, is critical hit somehow trademarked to them, or is
things
roll
that are
like, you know how we said roll initiative, who come up with the whole, I wonder in that how many of those things are somehow they own or you can't now use in any other game.
So I've read it because I was really curious, and it's a big document, the system reference document specifically for 5th edition, but it gives you a handful of races like dwarf and elf and human and things like that, and it's like, here are the characteristics for these. So that's kind of like a template that you can use to create your own races, as long as you're not like you can even tweak dwarf and stuff like that. But I couldn't use Haduzi, I couldn't use Plasmoid. Like, I can't put those in my game because they're not in the system reference document. Another thing is spells. There's a whole list of all of the spells, and I've been referring to them as the public domain spells, where they're in the system reference document. It's very open, but you can't use the word tensor for tensor's floating disk. So it's just magic floating disk or floating disk. You can't use Mordenkainen. You can't use that word. So there's copyright words, but there's not really copyright mechanics. But if it's not in the system reference document, like plasmoids are not in the SRD, then I can't use it in my game. And it's a fine line. Nobody can really decide this except for a judge in a copyright court of law. But I guarantee Hasbro has better lawyers than I do. And so a lot of third-party people are like, well, we're going to stick to that pretty hard, you know. It's kind of interesting.
I think it'll be, I mean, we see it because Goodman Games obviously is, you know, running a business based off of OGL stuff, basically, right? I mean, so they're able to survive and exist and create new products and have a thriving community based off of kind of the latching onto the OSR community of
and that's because Paizo worked
SRD.
Paizo worked hand in hand with Wizards of the Coast for 3rd edition. Like they created a lot of their helped create a lot of their adventures. I believe Paizo even created the Tyranny of Dragons adventure for Wizards of the Coast for 5th edition, because they wanted a starting adventure, but they were too busy working on the player's handbook in 2014. So it's like, okay, we'll create that for you.
I wonder if the silver lining would be, like, if you're to say what is a good outcome, we're thinking like the negative outcome would be, well, everybody will just stay doing 5e stuff, and Hasbro's, you know, wants more money, so they're going to fight it wherever they can to get everybody onto 6 or whatever. But maybe a sunnier look at it, rose-colored glass way, would be maybe it forces people to do kind of like what you're doing with exploring making mechanics and systems and get away from the reliance on 95% of the tabletop role-playing Kickstarters out there right now are 5e based, right? So maybe we'll start getting 2d6 systems. Maybe we'll start getting pool dice systems again. Maybe we'll get percentage dice systems again. Maybe we'll get 2d6 plus stat systems again. Maybe we'll get, you know, all these other styles, because it's that finally that impetus to say, let's stop using 5e as our thing, though it is the popular thing, and that's what everybody does their Kickstarter on, because they get hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to millions, really. Yeah. I mean, Koval's.
Yeah. No, I don't. And so people in chat are correcting me that it was actually Kobold Press that made Tyranny of Dragons, and You're right. I get Paizo and Kobold Crest confused sometimes,
That's
so I apologize. So I agree. There's that outcome where people might try other games. I think another outcome is that companies like, and I'm just going to keep using MCDM as an example, where they're like, hey, we've got all these rules. I've got a monster book now. Why don't we just make a player's handbook? And they can make their own player's handbook with the OGL. They can include the like 4 classes that are available in the system reference document, but then they make all their own, regular ones. And I was thinking back to that video game that we played, Solasta. And they used the OGL, and they had like the terminology of like, you can be I think it was like the light cleric, but after level 3, they had to come up with all of their own stuff. And so the light cleric goes in a very different direction. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get, mazes and monsters or something silly like that. Or, I don't know, Colvilles and Cauldrons. And it's like some MCDM product that he makes that's like pseudo 5e. But talking about this with some friends, I think the real game changer is Critical Role. And if Critical Role adopts OneD&D, then a lot of other people will adopt OneD&D. But if Critical Role says, well, we want to make our own custom content for Dungeons and Dragons because they themselves are a content creation company, they don't want to like piggyback off of Wizards of the Coast. They want to sell Tal'Dorei, books about everything, and they want to sell all this other stuff. Unless they decide to partner with Wizards of the Coast and make more Critical Role featured books for OneD&D, that's a possibility. But if they don't, I think Critical Role is bigger than Wizards of the Coast, and I think that they could say, "Oh, well, we'll make our own game," and everyone will be like, "Oh, well, I'm going to play the Critical Role version of D&D," and they'll jump ship. I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. It's such weird. A lot of people have made that same argument, but they also, because if you remember, when they start that in Geek and Sundry, their home game is a Pathfinder game.
Yep.
And for the start of the show, I'm there for the first couple of episodes when Geek and Sundry brings it on there, because I'm a huge fan of Will Wheaton, and he was doing a lot of role play stuff, but they weren't touching D&D yet. And then they talked about this Critical Role show that was going to come on, and it was going to be, they were going to do this long-running home campaign, and they were going to use the new 5th edition rules. And so that's the only reason I jumped on it, because I was wanting to learn 5th edition at that point. So it made sense for me to look for that. But I've seen lots of weird speculations and videos about what if they had just stayed with Pathfinder.
Yeah,
I don't think
right.
there's any chance Pathfinder becomes as big as D&D is now if they would have stayed with that system.
No, but I agree with you. I think my argument now is that Critical Role is powerful now. Like,
so
not
now
thinking about like
power.
what they do. Like, I think they're not going to jump ship as in like, hey guys, we're switching over to Pathfinder. I don't think they'll do that. But if they take the 5th edition that's worked for them and tweak it with a Critical Role style, but yeah, I don't know if they would.
What if they create their own system?
Exactly.
It's the Critical Role system.
Yeah, he's already making board games and stuff, and then we were think about all of those amazing game creators out there that if Wizards of the Coast like burns people with no OGL and Critical Role says, "Oh, come over here, like come make content for our game," all of a sudden, boom, like. Kobold Press would love to make content for a Critical Role focused game, so
I think it'll be whatever Stranger Things does. If Stranger Things changes and stays with 5e
well, Stranger Things will stick with 1980 something
80s rules.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I mean, it makes sense. All companies try to grab their IPs
never wanted the
and
OGL,
strangle them.
Yeah.
They want you to pay, music companies want you to pay every time you hear it, not that you could just buy a song and own it, right? Every video wants to be that way. Every company that has an intellectual property, which is all of gaming, music entertainment, video stuff, everybody's trying to grab that kind of thing. Yeah. So I just wonder.
This isn't the company, or I would say that is the company, but like I know for a fact that Chris Perkins and a lot of the people, they like the OGL. They like what it does for the community. So don't go vilifying them when we say Wizards of the Coast. It literally is the lawyers who are just like, well, this is how we make more money. You know,
or somebody
it's those same people that work in pharmaceuticals where they're like, well, if we increase the price of insulin 1,000%, we would make more money. And you're like, yeah, but what are you doing? Like, you don't, what? And they don't think because they're just like, this is how you make money. It's like, well, yeah, but it's wrong. I don't know. So, not to equate RPGs to insulin, but I hope you get my point.
To pharmaceutical malfeasance. Yeah. I don't know if I go that. That's a bridge too far, Jordan.
They look at it and they're just like, how do we make money with this?
They do want to make money. And we always have to remember that a company wants to make money. No company goes in typically into business without wanting to make money. Even nonprofits are trying to make money so they can do more.
Yeah.
They just are not trying to make a huge profit, technically. So I would be careful of vilifying anybody that decides to try to improve their business. And if it fails, just fail by spending your money elsewhere. Don't fail by, jumping on a boycott or a burn the place down kind of thing. Just say, okay, I'll spend my money with Monty Cook Games because I love Monty Cook Games, or I'll spend my money with this, and I just started
listening to Invisible Sun actual play. It's been a lot of fun.
I just saw another book. Must be an expansion book in my game store it's the square shape. That's how I knew immediately it was an Invisible Sun book. And it looked like it was a book about more of the city, maybe. I didn't know if
City of Saturnine,
Yeah, so I think there's but it wasn't in the cube or anything.
No.
It was off on its own.
Yeah.
So I obviously there are some other books for Invisible Sun.
I have all of them. I went haywired with that. So there's a book called like Secrets of Saturnine, which is all about the city.
That might have been the one I saw.
There's like a monster manual that they came out with. It's green. I forget the name of it. And then there's another book of spells, and that book came with cards as well for all the spells. So
got it.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Anyway,
interesting.
This is a huge topic, and I kind of want to make another video on it at some point, separate from the Saturday morning. But
they have to change the name. That's like, if that rumor you're saying is true, it confirms they have to change the name. They can't keep it as 5 something because that will not work if they're going to try to separate it from the OGL and try to separate it and say this is its own thing and you can't do that anymore. That means it has to be 6th edition then, right?
Yeah, or it has to be OneD&D or something, because they have to say this is this, and then you are not allowed to say my game is compatible with D&D 6th edition because it doesn't have an OGL, even though it might be compatible. Makes me wonder how many people are going to make like conversion kits that are kind of like I could see a company making a game or making a supplement, and then somehow like a conversion kit gets leaked out on the internet. So it's like, oh, but if I buy this, I could use this conversion kit.
Yeah.
So
here's the stats for if you're playing 6th edition.
Exactly. Yeah. Like just tweak it like this. So, in our notes, I think I wrote Kickstarter, but I didn't put anything under it. So maybe
I had wrote it because I saw one that was really good, and then I forgot the name just as my camera fiasco was happening.
Okay.
So I didn't get to go back and look it up. Have you done any Kickstarters in the last month or so? What's your last Kickstarter you backed while I'm getting back to where I wanted to find it?
There was a horror haunted house creation RPG that I think was by the same people that did Alice is Missing, which was the texting RPG where you're looking for your friend Alice. That is now going to be turned into a book or a movie. The one I just backed this month, it actually has 9 hours to go. I should share this because I think it looks really cool. But it's called Home, the Haunted House Map Building RPG. And I thought it was really cool. It's just kind of it's not like a long form RPG. It really does feel kind of like Alice is Missing, where you'll play it like a few times. But I liked the idea of building a haunted house with your friends. Like part of this process is like coming up with this haunted house, and it looks really cool. Like I think it's a cool idea for an RPG, and I don't know. So this was the last one, and then Kids on Bikes 2 2nd edition just finished, and that is also on my list of potentials. A lot of Kickstarters coming in though. I should be getting Crypt of the Devil Lich for 5th edition and DCC. I should be getting DCC number 100 should be coming in soon, and lots of DCCs. DCC Undying Earth will be coming in, which if you subscribe to the Jocular Junction, the plan is to make big reviews on all of those.
I think WebDM and Venture Maidens is almost done too.
Venture Maidens, the PDF is done. If you subscribe to that, you can go get the PDF now. WebDM, the PDF is almost done from what I've heard. And the Venture Maidens book should be shipping out soon. And I just got a notification saying that my Monty Cook or my MCDM book is being finally shipped. Kingdoms and Warfare. So Zris wants to point out to you, Lucian, that your camera is excellent today. Just looks so good.
Well, yeah, I know.
That is because it is a cell phone. He is logged in with.
If I went to the back camera, it would be even better. This is even the front-facing camera, let alone if I turned it around. I have thought about going on a tech tangent here to use phones. I bought what's the Google one? The Pixel. I was thinking about using a Pixel 6 right now, or a Pixel 7, to use as my phone for my podcast and everything, just to get rid of these, USB.
I know a couple YouTubers that use their phones primarily for their video, and here I have my Canon DSLR, and a lot of times it looks better because the hardware behind it. But they're like, I thought it was just like Lucian looks so good today. Everyone in chat,
he looks awesome. Well, thanks guys.
His camera is not
normally.
Which you have a pretty good camera.
Kickstarter. I don't want to talk about how good I look. This is bad. The one I saw that made me bring this up is I was watching. There's a really good podcast, UK, or they're either UK or they're Welsh, or one of the countries that are over there in the United Kingdom, because there are a few countries that make that area up. They do a tabletop gaming channel also, and I think their quality is top effing notch. Like, they are really good at their stuff. In their show, they do either a weekly or a monthly show where they go out and do the same thing that we do with news and all the stuff that's around there. They're more focused towards tabletop war games, but they span everything just to have a nice big show.
Yeah.
They pointed out Itza's Guide to Dragon Bonding, a D&D 5e supplement. And when you kind of scroll through this, made out of Mexico City, Mexico. It's on Kickstarter right now. It's got 19 days to go. It's already made its goal, so it will pledge. But look at some of the artwork in this. Look at some of the things you can do when you scroll through this. Maybe Jordan can put it in chat at some point.
Yeah.
Or you can just look it up on Kickstarter. It's called Itza's, ITZA-S, Itza's Dragon Bond. And it's about adding more dragons to your Dungeons and Dragons, which I thought was kind of a cool. 8 subclasses, dragon broods. It has rules for aerial dragon riding combat. I mean, everybody needs that. New monsters, new spells, classes, the Dragon Hunter, the Dragon Herald, and the Vala Adept. This all sounds super cool. And I just found the artwork looked really good. That DM screen is fantastic. This art reminds me of like Magic the Gathering level, Dungeons and Dragons level art. They've got some really cool styles of dragons that are it kind of feels like it has a feel from different cultures even. So like you get, how like a Chinese or a Japanese dragon in art looked different than, say, the European dragons. They had a different kind of body shape and look, and the way the wings are. And then, so I feel like there's even some in here, like even the Kotal one looks really cool. It's got the feathers all over it, and it just seems really cool. Undead dragons and scaled dragons, and just all kinds of stuff. And just look at some of those monsters in there that just look really crazy. So I just want to point this one out. I think this is my next one I'll be backing probably in the next couple of days. I just had, you said, I have a bunch of Kickstarters coming in.
19 days to go on that one. So you might be interested. They sponsored a couple videos, and I did a flip through of their early doc in I think it was early October or the end of September. And I've got another video that I'm working on. I was actually going to finish recording and editing it tonight, where I go over the playtest rules that they've incorporated.
Nice.
But I the first video that I did, I talked a lot about the world, and it's really interesting because dragons live on the moon, and they come down every 27 years to it's like a spell allows them to return to the earth. And there's a whole mechanic of, it's called Dragon Bond, because you can tie your soul with a dragon, and then you literally have like a dragon that will become part of the party and run around with you. And so, yeah, I think it's an amazing supplement. And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, where like 5e, like Wizards of the Coast is doing a great job with 5e, but then you see something like this and you're just like, holy cow, like this is awesome. Stuff. Like I want to play this, you know? And it makes me think to like Sly Flourish is currently running a D&D 5e game where he's using the PHB and then all Kobold Press stuff. And he's running it in Midgard by Kobold Press, which is their in-home world.
Really?
And it's like, guys, it's doable. Like we don't need Wizards of the Coast to play 5th edition, you know? And that's what makes me think that products like this make me think Critical Role could really take the game into whatever direction they want. And they'll call it, you know,
and I think with these
Critical
guys,
Role
they
the
built
RPG,
a whole campaign world, right? This is a whole campaign setting.
It's a setting.
And I don't
it's
know if there's
books.
another book.
It's from what I've been communicating with the people because of the sponsorship. It's 3 books. It's basically like monsters, player rules, and then a mini campaign / the world. So like you can have, you know, all this stuff. And so yeah, but I loved the mechanics. Like it really got me interested, the dragon bonding mechanics, because you share hit points. So if I have 50 hit points and my dragon has 25, we now collectively have 75 hit points. So if an AoE hits us, we take double damage, but like my dragon could run in and and if it goes down, I go down. It's kind of a cool mechanic. Like I thought it really worked. It made pets more efficient, I think.
It's so funny because we did not plan it at all. I just happened to see it on another podcast that I really like to watch. I'm like, I'm gonna bring this to the show.
And I think this is the kind of thing where you're like I specifically don't try to like push products on people, but you know, when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I want you to like review my product, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, that looks really cool. And so I don't take every sponsorship. And so the fact that I took this one, it was like, you guys are doing some really cool stuff. And it's
cool. I look forward to those
and like
videos.
I said, it's out of Mexico City, Mexico. And so they have a lot of like cultural kind of cool dragony things. Like the Mesoamerican stuff is really cool in the book. So you should definitely check it out.
I'm glad I pointed it out.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I can't wait to see your videos. I'll keep an eye out. Is that on main channel or is that on your...
That's on the main channel, yeah. Because they want to sponsor a main channel thing.
That makes sense.
And it'll be up shortly. I've just been so busy. I'm in a play, so I'm like rehearsing and being a dad and trying to do other stuff and running that Thursday game. I'm like, oh my God. So really busy.
So I should be getting my Secret World pretty soon. I also backed Dragonbane, but that was from... Free League, Free League, and so I'm waiting on that one, and that should be coming pretty soon. And then Everyday Heroes is coming pretty soon. So that was the other ones, but I really feel like I am gonna back this one. This dragon one sounded really cool. I just love the artwork too. Just even to flip through it looks like it's really good. It reminds me of like the Wild Sea one, where I'm just looking at the artwork and I'm just like, I don't care what's in this book. I don't care what they put in it because the artwork is so good. I just like looking through it and going, oh,
sometimes
imagine adventure there.
They're just fun to read sometimes, you know?
Yeah, imagine this character to play. You know, it's just so good. So, and I've been reading lots of role-playing books. We'll see that here if we still have time towards the end, if I didn't mess all that up. But that's our Kickstarter stuff. I thought I saw that one. And if you guys really do like the other channel, and they don't know us from anything from Adam, Tabletop, is their
what's
their
podcast?
YouTube channel. So they're on Tabletop, all one word, in YouTube. They have a really cool logo too, which is 2 T's for tabletop, but it makes the tabletop game, which I think is kind of cool. They've been around forever. They do a great podcast, every kind of vlog kind of thing about new games, Kickstarters. They did in this same show. They talk about board games that are coming out. They talk about TTRPGs that are coming out. They talk about what's happening in the make the stuff at your home minis, 3D printing space. They're like, oh, check this things out. So they're really cool. They're I believe they're Irish or English. I can't remember where they're at. So they have a really cool show. I really like it.
Cool.
Check them out. So I think they were sponsored. When I found them when just as Geek and Sundry was going, and Geek and Sundry had them on some of their shows doing gaming news for a bit, and then they broke off when Geek and Sundry went and did more other things. But that's when I found these guys way back in the day. And they've got a cool website that they built themselves. You can get games and stuff from them, and they do tons of cool content. So check them out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I will. I'll do the old subscribe and check them out.
I like them. Are you ready for some Paizo stuff? I looked up some Paizo because we really didn't have anything D&D wise because the last release we're waiting for is Dragonlance. They didn't have any other videos on their channel.
Yeah.
I did see a blurb on Twitter about the surveys going out or is about to be done, or make sure you get it in because the deadline's almost happened. Yeah. So maybe we're about to see some new stuff, but we haven't yet. So we've really kind of not had in the last week or so.
I think late next week the preview copies of Dragonlance will get out, but they're gearing up for PAX Unplugged, which is December 6th. Yeah. Wizards, I mean. So like WotC's gearing up for that. But Dragonlance, and so I think after PAX Unplugged, we'll get lots of new information.
Because we got to know what the next book is, right? Yeah, we got to know what the next hype is, so we'll know. And we'll know that that's going to be the 2023 stuff, because that's, I don't think we'll get to
and that. Planescape, really, they announced it, so it's probably going to be a lot of Planescape information.
I hope it's that.
Yeah. But yeah, what's happening with Paizo?
I did find some Paizo stuff. So they're doing a really cool thing. They have an event called Toys of Boundless Wonders. And this is one charity that's actually kind of near and dear to my heart. And I don't come on and try to have you guys, sign up for all the charities that we're a part of or anything like that. But Toys for Tots has always been one that not only in like a charity that I like to give to, and it's happened at work sometimes every now and then, but it also aligns with what I do in my other hobby, which is, the medieval reenactment group that I'm a part of, and I'll put my armor on and go do stuff. It's the one charity that usually during the Christmas time, we do a Toys for Tots tourney. And so all the people that are going to come and fight in that tournament, the way you get in is to bring 2 toys and you put those in. Mm-hmm. And then the Marines come and pick them up at the end of the day, and you get to meet them. And we all have a great time doing a fun tournament, and stuff, and hanging out with friends. And then there's this just giant box of toys that get to go to kids, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do, because anybody can just go buy some toys for some kids and hand them out. And I love the idea of like putting in their D&D starter sets or something, or Pathfinder starter sets, or just cool stuff that the kids could just pick up and say, hey, I get to play with this with my friends. So Paizo's doing one, and it's being put together by game stores that are willing to do Toys for Tot drop-off locations, because just like you can do Santa's outside Target or something, Salvation Army kind of stuff, they will pick places where you can put a box for Toys for Tots.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I'm going to go check with my game store a little bit later after our show today to see if they would be willing to do a Toys for Tots location. I'll talk to the people at here, and then they're going to offer games and stuff. People are going to DM games for a day or two, and the way you get into the game and get to play is you buy a toy from the store that you're in. So if I go to Fanfare and it's a comic book store with games and toys and all kinds of stuff right there in the store, go buy something, put it in the box, sit down, I'll run a game for you for, a couple hours, play some role-playing games or board games or whatever, play some Magic the Gathering, matches or whatever, just something fun to try to promote that a little bit. So I thought that was really cool. I think it's cool that Paizo's really showing to be a company that is diving into the mainstream of inclusivity, being good to its employees, being good to its community, being good to the people in general. And I think it really shines with the types of charities and things they do. So I think that's cool. The other thing they had that I thought was really neat that's out this month is they have an Interstellar Species book for Starfinder, which is a really cool book. I mean, it has, not only do you have lots of species that you can use in your games if you're playing Starfinder. I was thinking about using it for like Star Trek games or Star Wars game, anything that's going to have lots of different alien types and species that are out there. But it also has rules to create them. It has cool. It has a class. It has a bunch of NPCs that you can use, and it's a really diverse kind of how do you fill your universe if you're doing science fiction games, but I guess you could use it really for anything. How do you fill your world with a really diverse community of different species, not just humans and elves and dwarves, or not just, your typical Vulcans and Klingons and I guess Andorans, I guess, maybe if I go that route. Or what would be the Star Wars equivalent? What would it be? I don't even know. Star Wars would be like your
Admiral Akbars. I don't know.
Your Yodas,
your Ewoks.
Yeah, your Ewoks,
your Chewbacca's,
which would be your Wookiees. There you go, your Wookiees. Your Mandalorians, I don't know, they're probably mostly human. But anyways, I thought that was kind of cool that you could really flesh out and fill out. And I like books that allow you to create these things. This would be good, I think, for you people that like to play mutant OSR stuff. You play DCC a lot, but there's also MCC, which is also quite popular. Mutant Crawl Classics. Or Mutant Classic. Yeah,
Mutant Crawl Classics. Yep.
Yeah. There's lots of different species there because you can do a lot of different mutants and different things there too. So I think there's aliens and all kinds of stuff.
There's actual mutants where you were human but you were mutated, but there's also sentient plants in that game where you're plantians. Yeah. And then there's the sentient animals, which I forget their names. I was about to say like Animorphs, but that's not right at all. But yeah, no. And so if you like playing those things, and in the Umerica, which is like the destroyed America for Dungeon Crawl Classics, they have the Greys, which are the gray aliens that you can play, and you can play robots and stuff in that.
Perfect. So gray aliens. There you go. Like you could run an X-Files game with those,
fun.
Those different ones. That would be really cool. And then I threw the last one, a little note in here, because I know you love Tome of Beasts. Tome of Beasts 3, Tome of Layers 3, and I think it was Tome of Minions 3, or they have whatever their name for it is. For the 5e version, they're putting out 5e versions of these books too, is coming out in December, so you can get those if you want to pick those up.
That's Kobold Press, isn't it? Tome?
It was on the Paizo's website.
There you
go. So I don't know if they're a partner to that or...
Yeah, that's Kobold Press. Well, this is the Creature Codex, but Tome of Beasts...
Yeah, I think they have their own. I think Paizo did theirs.
Oh, okay. Anyway. I do like the Kobold Press, or the Creature Codex and Tome of Beasts. I have Tome of Beasts 1 and 2. I don't think I'm going to get 3 because I have a lot of monsters, but just in my Modron game the other day, I was like, I need like a cool alchemist, and I couldn't find anything in official documents, and sure enough, I start flipping through the Creature Codex, and I found exactly what I needed, and I'm like, this is awesome. So it was an alchemist elf that would attach vials to a bow and then fire an arrow that did a bunch of extra stuff. So
there you go. I put the link in there.
Yeah.
And I like the tone. I think Paizo and Kobold Press, I think, have done great jobs on monster books. I think I've used them manual, and maybe even Mordekainen or Volos. I think I've used these other ones even more than those ones. I think I've used third-party stuff more when I
definitely have,
and stuff.
And I will say that I definitely have, because when I was running most of my 5th edition, there was the Kobold Fight Club that specifically couldn't incorporate a lot of wizard stuff because of lawsuits, but Kobold Press and them were like, oh yeah, throw all our monsters in there. So that was like the go-to encounter generator for a while, was Kobold Fight Club. But yeah, Tome of Beasts 3. That is Kobold Press. It looks like it's on the Paizo website because they're I don't know.
They're a partner of it or something.
Cross promoting. Who knows? But
yeah, that's interesting. Well, here's what I like, this little line they have on the thing. This brings you Void Knights and Breakwater Trolls, Musk Deer and Fiend Lords, Prismatic Dragons and Royal Chimeras, Stained Glass Moths. That sounds super cool. Void Claw Zombies. Okay, you have my attention. Tar Golems, come on. Witch Willows, that sounds cool. Kobold Drake Riders and Hellfire Giants. I mean, every single one of those I want in my campaign. There wasn't one there I didn't want in my campaign.
Zris says really that cool. Paizo prints Kobold Press's books, so they partner together. Okay. So that's probably why they're like, pre-order it, and then we'll know how many books to print. So
Dritz has all the info. Maybe we should have this person on our show.
Well, they're here every week,
all this stuff,
doing awesome stuff. We started the Paizo section for them because they love Pathfinder. So.
They're keeping us honest. Well, that's good. I'm still reading through those books. I'm still this coming year, 2023, with the Roll20 and the Kingmaker and the other 5e adventures that are getting on Roll20 right now for Pathfinder.
Yeah.
But I want to do Pathfinder 2nd Edition games, and Roll20 is doing a lot more content for them to help me out as a brand new Dungeon Master. So I'm hoping 2023 is the year.
Because you can play Second Edition on Roll20, right? Like Pathfinder
they've
Second
got,
Edition?
They've got stuff. Yeah, oh yeah.
It's just not
there.
as like polished, I guess, as some. No, I shouldn't say polished, but it's very. It's that user interface is not what you're expecting. You kind of want like a D&D Beyond user interface.
Yeah, the only thing they didn't have was the character Mancer piece, which is the thing that really did what D&D Beyond does better now.
Yeah.
But if you look back 2 years ago, the character Mancer that they had brought out on Roll20 was just as good as anything D&D Beyond had. And that's why I went to it, because it made it easier for me to teach people how to play 5e and build characters, because the way the character sheet generated and helped with all the rules. Now D&D Beyond has advanced far enough that they're a much better product than that. But I was really hoping for a Pathfinder 2e version of that. And we'll get that with Nexus. I think that's really my big thing. When we have something that helps people build characters in an easy, understandable way, and we're not trying to figure out, is that how the rule reads, or is that what they meant by this thing? And it really just puts it on the character sheet and we go, oh, okay, we get 2d5 plus this for our HP. Now that makes total sense, you know? I think that's when I'm really going to be ready to dive into it, because they have so many good products over at Paizo. I hate not to play them. I hate to miss out on them. I hate not to run them for players. So that's my Paizo news. Did Jordan get to play some role-playing games in the last week since we met?
I did, yeah. I've been playing a lot, it feels like, and reading a lot. But
No Man's Sky.
And lots of No Man's Sky. Actually, I started playing Vampire Survivors again, which is a very dangerous rabbit hole game. But if you haven't picked up that game, Lucian, I think it's only like $2.
Yeah,
and
I've been hearing about it.
Amazing, like amazing. And it starts out very like, oh, this is kind of like a simple like little flash game, and then just weird things start happening. I was definitely playing, and the whole screen like got weird and glitched out, and I'm like, what is going on? And then when I went back to the levels, there's a weird glitched out level now, and the description is, do you see this too? This probably shouldn't be here. And it's like they're totally playing into the funny aspect of it. So but no, I played Dungeon Crawl Classics, so my DCC game where we're running through Hot Springs Island. Friends came over. A lot of combat, a lot of running around, and a lot of combat because I just kind of randomly generated situations for them, which is one of the reasons that I love Hot Springs Island, is I can kind of be like, okay, yeah, oh, you find this, like, what do you want to do? And they jump in. They found a nest of electric birds that are kind of like wingless or flightless griffins that can shoot electricity, and they decided to run up and cause some problems, and the birds did destroy them pretty much, and they fled. They were like, okay, these guys are tough. I'm like, oh yeah, they are. Which is another thing I like about this, is they can't judge how difficult something's going to be, because sometimes they're like 12-foot salamander and they knock it down in 2 hits, and they're like, oh, a bird, I should be able to take a bird. And I'm like, well, the bird has like 8 times more hit points than the salamander, but you don't know that, and all of a sudden they're being paralyzed by lightning, and it's like, what's going on? So lots of fun there. I don't have time for this, but I really want to do a game journal like I did back in the day, where I just kind of talk about like, this is what happened, this is what I think I did wrong, this is what I did I think right. Kind of what this show turned into, but I feel like we're more covering news now than we're talking about our personal
That is true.
games.
We used to talk more about our games.
Because it was like, how do we become better dungeon masters? Did I make the right decision? And the show's evolved, but maybe we could get back to that at some point.
We can bring that back.
I did play Great Modron March. I ran that. We had lots of fights as our players went to a Modron deconstruction house, which is a very creepy thing, as they walked in and they were vivisecting Modrons inside this like tower warehouse thing.
Poor Modrons.
Yeah, to grab parts and then replace human parts with those parts. So you'd see like humans walking around with big Modron arms and stuff. It's just some weird magical experiments going on, and they don't really know why. We ended on a pretty big cliffhanger, so stay tuned next week for what's going to happen there. And then my friend Lex was like, hey, I want to run this World of Dungeons supplement that he found. So me and some friends, we played through a Powered by the Apocalypse game called World of Dungeons. And I was a magic user, summoner, wizard thing. And we had a lot of fun. We kind of just... it's a really interesting supplement that he found, which is why he wanted to run it. World of Dungeons is a free game that you can find on itch.io. And me and Lex did a review of it on Games with Lex over on the Jocular Junction. And then he found this really cool supplement that he wanted to like try. And so we went through that. And then I randomly discovered the 1989 Ghostbusters tabletop RPG. And I've been reading through that, and it's really good. Like, really good. The original box set came with... when during character creation, you also have to fill out your last will and testament because they have to know where all of your stuff goes when you die, because you will die. But the whole idea is that you're starting a Ghostbusters franchise in wherever you're at. So you're like, I'm in, like Dubuque, Iowa, and we're going to open our own Ghostbusters franchise. And then you have all of the problems of running your ghost extermination service here in Dubuque, Iowa.
All of the funniness, all of the
so,
hilarity.
And it's all written tongue-in-cheek. It was super funny. Yeah. I guess it was really popular, and I think it's the first one that West End Games or kind of like launched them. And they later became very popular by making the Star Wars RPG back in the late 80s, 90s. So this is the 1989 Ghostbusters RPG. It's out of print, but you can find PDFs if you look hard enough, and it's that's how I'm reading it. It's very fun. So... but yeah, what are you doing in RPGs?
Well, we played on our new night Thursday. We were mowing through lots of hobgoblins and on the level, and kind of going through another area of... It looks like maybe they just took it over, and I don't think we're too far out from going down lower now. So I think the levels are getting more smaller and focused as we go deeper, but dangerous and more quirks to them. So I think we're going to start going through them pretty quickly. One thing we were doing that I thought was interesting, and maybe I'll kind of put it in next week's notes because we'll run over a tiny bit today. I started kind of talking to my dungeon master from Down Under, Australian dungeon master, about a new magic item that I wanted, because I wanted to be able to cast on like a long rest kind of equivalent only once. I want to be able to cast the enlarge spell, and I don't have access to that as the arcane archer / cleric. So I could try to do some more multi-class shenanigans or feat shenanigans to try to somehow find a way to get access to that. But then I thought, well, why not make it more fun and just ask the dungeon master, couldn't I try to commission with downtime days and connections that we have in Waterdeep and stuff that somebody could create or make, or we could find or procure something that lets me basically cast this once per day, and then it's like having just one more spell, but it's nothing too crazy. And enlarge isn't that big of a a spell jump or anything, because I just thought there's some shenanigans I want to have that I think would be fun with that if I had it, and I just feel like, this would be so good if I could get it. So we're gonna see. His eyes lit up anytime you ask your dungeon master to create you something unique. Going into it, you're not trying to, not even but you're trying to max your output, and you're trying to go for the great, the highest damage possible. Their eyes kind of glaze over when you try to bring them that kind of thing. But if you say, I just want this quirky thing that I think would be fun, it'll add some flavor. It does have some utility, but it's not going to break your campaign. It's not going to break the game. Yeah. Can we come up with something? And you let their kind of creative juices start to flow, because they get a hand in thinking about how could they get something that's cool, because they know your character too, and they know you've been working on this character and what their personality is and what their story has been over now more than a year, it almost seems like, or at least a year of playing. I think it's going to be fun for them. So don't dismiss talking to your dungeon master and saying, hey, could we come up with something really cool that I could have crafters or people build? And it could be part of a quest. It could take some time. I'm not going to get it immediately type thing, but I think we'll add to it. And I think it adds a lot of fun to you. And it, I think, helps keep your dungeon master engaged, because secret or spoiler alert, dungeon masters can sometimes get bored of their own campaign, start to lose interest of their own campaign, and start thinking way too much about starting a Transformers campaign that they've been running, or some other games. And I don't know who that would be, but some
It's all
dungeon
hypothetical.
masters out there. Yeah. So how about you? Has anybody come and just asked you to create? I mean, it's still, to me, one of the coolest interactions me and you had originally was when we were talking about your cleric to Leviatar and the magic item you were going to get that was the whip that was part of the symbol and what it could do and things. And I just thought that's such a cool interaction to have and something to always go back to, that nothing else in the campaign we might remember, but we remember that, or I remember that.
And like how that magic item worked, because like I would take extra damage to do extra damage and stuff, and it was all themed to the Lady of Pain. Yeah.
And we collaborated kind of on what it would do and how it would work and how it would look. And it was like, I knew I didn't want it to be too powerful, but I wanted it to be thematic, but it still was cool enough that you'd want to use it and do it. And you'd had all input on it too. So I just think it was a cool interaction between two people that are playing that game. Don't always think that they're just on the other side of the screen. Yeah. So you don't get to do those kinds of cool things. You can still.
I would say especially other dungeon masters, because I have players who are just like, I just want you to give me my thing. How does it work? But like, I know when I'm running other dungeon masters, if I'm just like, hey, like, how do you want this to work? They're like, oh, what? I get to have input, And so the people that like to have input into games, that's really cool. So.
Yeah. So that's been great. I'm excited for that to come up again. And then basically I went and was at my game store again, and I picked up some more on sale books that people had returned. Our store takes in old games and stuff. So I picked up Sentinel Comics, the role-playing game, which I love. This book is filled with artwork that is some of the best in the world for me. I love superhero
is Sentinel Comics
books.
A brand of comics that I don't know about?
They are. I think they started out as like a computer game that was based about playing like a card game, and then they turned it into a role-playing game, and then it got turned into a TTRPG game. I think people can correct me. I got to play this at Gen Con, and it was a really fun system. The way your powers and things are based off of different dice, so you use lots of different dice depending on what your powers are. It's a very just great superhero system that's very different than most of the other ones that are out there as far as the rule system. Very colorful. It talks about how to create, your scenes and your trackers and all that kind of stuff. Like all the character sheets are always really super colorful, and I just found it a really cool game. And I've always wanted I got the quick start rules back when they were developing them a year or two ago, and now I have finally the actual full book, which is cool. And then I picked up one other thing because I thought, hey, they had it on sale. It is a Wrath and Glory Warhammer 40K starter set.
Oh, cool.
To play the Wrath and Glory RPG. So it has 6 characters in there. It's got game dice. I think it's a D6 pool system of some sort. It's got battle maps and tokens, and it's got an adventure in there. And I thought, hey, this might be a cool way. I mean, I always like thinking about how does a starter set introduce you to the game. And one of the ideas when I saw this, I was like, I wonder if I could make a video on how well does the starter set indoctrinate me into this game and this rule set, and do I feel like I want to play more after it? Was it easy to pick up and explain to other people when I don't know anything about it because I've never played it? I always like to understand how these starter sets work and if they really do the job well. So I think that's going to be a video I want to put out pretty quick. And then in the notes, I was just going to talk about Goblin Slayer and Transformers if we had not filled up our time, but we obviously probably did. I did want to mention that Transformers was, I put it in the notes there, the Essence 20 system. I know somebody told us that last week, but it's basically a D20, and then you get a skill die that you add to that, and you're trying to get over a DC of 1 to 30 or whatever the dungeon master.
So I have like a D20 but a D6 skill die or something, and you roll them together.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Perfect. And there might be some other pluses or modifiers in there, but that's the basic system. And then Goblin Slayer is a 2D6 system, but you start with your focus, your skill level, or your class level, and then your skill gives you maybe a number of like 5 or 7 or 6. Then you roll your 2d6 to add to that, and you're trying to roll above it. So it's a 2d6 plus, your skill stuff too. And I'm very interested in reading this one. This book is so different than how all the other TTRPGs are laid out, how they explain things. It's just a very different way to read a role-playing tabletop game, and I'm enjoying it just because it's different.
Cool.
And I don't know anything about Goblin Slayer or the anime or anything. I haven't watched it or anything, but it just grabbed my eye. It's all not even colors. It's just a different read, a different way to do something. That's why I really like it, and I'm hoping to bring more information to you guys on it as I go through them, because I'm just so excited on all these new games and stuff that we're getting to play and come out and play around with. So
yeah, I think I was talking about it with you, but also with Lex, where I really want to go back to that idea of I make a character for a system I don't know very well to like understand how the system works, and that's something I still want to do, where it's like, okay, Jordan makes a character for Goblin Slayer, and
Jordan, the character creation, I made this a note in Transformers, shocked me how cool it was.
Okay.
I want to do this with you at some point where I sit down and explain
I'll look
how
into the
they do
PDF
it.
and see if I can pick up Transformers. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because I think this is a cool way of doing character creation. And what I liked about it, there was just this one thing I was going to read out of it. So the very first step of character creation is discuss with your GM and other players the character you're thinking about creating. Imagine that, Jordan, being your first step to character creation. You're going to talk to your party, you're going to talk to your GM, and then you're going to go and do your concept. You're going to figure out what your essence scores are. You're going to decide your influence, your origin, your role, and then you're going to describe what that character looks like, and you're ready to form your team. What a cool way to kind of step out the steps. And I think as I was reading this, I was like, I think Jordan would really get into this.
Oh, yeah.
And just the way the way they described it, like you pick what you're kind of like what you do, but then you pick your chassis, right? So then you're picking, are you a car or a plane or these different types of chassis that might work. And then you still have more things to pick after that. What's your role in the party? Are you a support? Are you a frontliner? Are you a tank? Are you a damage dealer? That kind of thing. So it's a really cool way we never think of it that way, I don't think, in Dungeons & Dragons, because Dungeons & Dragons, I think we all just think about a character we want to play and then put it into whatever campaign and whatever the other party's going to do. We don't even know what they're creating. So we might come in with 3 warlocks all of a sudden because everybody decided they were all going to play warlocks. We just don't know, because I don't know. For me, D&D character creation, we don't collaborate as much as we do, it seems like, in other games. So,
yeah.
I
I think that's something I really love about it. We need to end this because I have to go to a hot spring and go swimming. It's very exciting. But thank you guys for watching and hanging out today. Be sure to share all of this with other people. Share the podcast with people. I will be getting Great Modron March podcasts up on Patreon soon. Otherwise, you should check out Nerd Immersion Plays to watch those videos because it's super fun. We have a lot of fun with those games. Anything else before we take off, sir?
No, I'm going to go troubleshoot my other camera.
Fix your camera, all that stuff. Or just keep using this one because apparently you look amazing.
I look amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Bye, guys.
Bye.